Nicole here. Welcome to Make a Difference, where we have a show packed with great music, but you can also hear about the amazing work happening across ESNEFT and within your community. Thank you for joining me today. Also joining me in the HRI studio is Mandy Jordan, who is the Associate Director of Charities and Voluntary Services here at ESNEFT. So it's great to have her with me. But you might have also seen Martin Lewis last night. Now, he was discussing on Martin Lewis Money Show the important subject of wills. So Mandy and I will be diving into this subject over the next hour. Stay with us as I ask, why is it so important, and much, much more. Back, Mandy Jordan, Associate Director of Charities and Voluntary Services here at ESNEFT. Welcome to the studio, Mandy.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining me today. So if people are listening and they don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a bit of background of the charity, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined the charity back in 2016 when it was then the Ipswich Hospital charity, and I joined as the head of fundraising. There wasn't a fundraising team in place actually at that point, so we set that up. We set up a lot of governance around the charity. Prior to that, I'd actually worked for Macmillan and was the area manager, and I had responsibility for building the Wolverston Macmillan Centre, obviously not brick by brick, but raising the millions of pounds to build that centre, so we're really proud of that as well. And yeah, we've just taken the charity in a whole new direction.
So since then you have been part of so many different big projects, and of course a lot of that wouldn't have been at all possible without, you know, the generosity of the local community, of course. But before I played Coldplay, I mentioned that Martin Lewis, you know, last night on his show, he was discussing the extremely important subject of planning for the future. So from power of attorneys, inheritance tax and wills, and of course as part of your career, you've had a lot of experience and you've got a lot of knowledge to do with wills. Can you give us a bit of background about wills? What are they?
So it is vitally important, and I would encourage anyone to watch back on iPlayer the Martin Lewis show from last night, because it was just fundamental. You have to really plan for the future. I think people don't really realise that, you know, accidents happen. I think he said last night, accidents happen, strokes happen, dementia happens. And I think historically we've probably thought about wills just as being something for older people, the older generation, not thinking about planning our future. But actually, as families have changed over the years, we have more blended families, we have families that cohabit perhaps more than being married. It's become vitally important that everybody has a will that sets out what their wishes are and has really difficult, challenging conversations sometimes with family members, but maybe we're just all a bit more open about it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you said the future in a lot of our minds is, you know, when we're really old, you know, but actually the future might be next week, it might be tomorrow, because you kind of wonder at what point in life do people write a will?
So the advice is that you should actually write a will when at various milestones, and review your will at various milestones. So when you have children, perhaps when you do start to cohabit, perhaps when you've got a mortgage or you get married. One of the things Martin mentioned actually last night was that, and most people don't know, is that when you actually get married or on divorce, your will becomes invalid. So you should be reviewing. Hopefully, people aren't going to be getting divorced, but you know, we should be reviewing those at major milestones in our life, and probably once every 5 years. I've had a will since my early 20s. But I know that's probably because in the past I was a legal executive and I could see difficult family situations arising and disputes arising. And I don't think many people think about that side of things.
So, I mean, what is within a will that's so important? What does it set out for their friends, family members?
So firstly, it is just about you having documented your wishes. So you are writing, who do you want to deal with the assets that you leave behind? Who is your trusted person? And that if you don't have a family member or a loved one or a friend that you feel would be able and willing to do that, because it does take up a fair amount of time, then you can appoint a solicitor or somebody else, another professional perhaps, to do that. And then you can leave different parts of your estate. And it might be that your assets are formed by money or property or even specific items that mean something to you that you want to leave to somebody that you know will have future value from them.
There's so much involved with writing a will, or people's perception of writing a will. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into that and looking at how you could go about getting a will. But first, here it actually is now to Hospital Radio Ipswich. It's Make a Difference Hour with me, Nicole, and Mandy Jordan, and we are talking about wills and planning for the future. So this was interesting when I heard this, Mandy, that 60% of adults in the UK don't have a will. That's incredible. So what happens to those that don't have a will?
So the law is different in different areas of the UK, but in England, if you die without a will, effectively there is something called intestacy law, which is a very old law, and effectively a bit old-fashioned, goes down bloodlines effectively. So firstly, some of your property, a certain amount would go to your spouse, and then some to your children and potentially grandchildren, depending on your individual family circumstances. But that's set out by the court, and I think people think, well, it's okay, I'm married, everything will just go to my spouse. That's not necessarily true. Only the first, and I can't remember the actual amount off the top of my head, but only the first, so many 100,000 goes to your spouse, and potentially your property, depending on how you hold that, whether that's as tenants in common or as joint tenancy. But actually, your children might actually get some of your assets. So having a will is really, really important, and we actually just had some experience of this, unfortunately. So despite everything I know about wills and having nagged parents and parents-in-law across many years to sort their affairs out, to me it doesn't matter who it's left to or what their wishes are, but having a will would have set those out. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, we lost a loved one that didn't have a will, and it fell to myself and my husband to actually then follow the intestacy laws, have to prove that the person's spouse was actually legally entitled to those assets, and then try to manage the affairs, which takes an awful lot longer and adds stress for a family member at a time they really just don't need it.
Absolutely. So it would have given them peace of mind that you guys wouldn't have had to go through that situation had it have been sorted. Yeah, because when somebody passes away, there is so much to deal with. Dealing with inheritance tax, accounts, and all sorts of affairs. That extra level of stress, if you can take that away, then it's certainly worth doing. In March, we do, of course, hear a lot about free wills, and if you're watching daytime TV, then you can't watch an advert without hearing about a free will. So what is Free Wills Month about?
Okay, so the Free Wills Month was started quite a few years ago now by a few of the larger charities who effectively would pay a solicitor's fee, which is generally somewhere around the region of £150 to £300 for a will. They would pay that in the hope, let's face it, that you may then leave a sum of money which they might have suggested a donation amount to that charity, either at the time that your will was made or later on as part of your will. And that's evolved really to become an annual thing. So we still have Free Wills Month with many of the larger charities, but some smaller charities have also got involved. But we actually now don't necessarily expect a donation. We are making sure that people do have wills and they've thought about their circumstances.
So that's a really good point. So previously they would have suggested an amount. Nowadays, most of them, you don't have to make a donation. It's up to you. And you don't have to do it when you first set up your will. You can change it later. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can update your will at any time. You need to do it legally, you need to have it properly witnessed, etc., but you can update it as your circumstances change. And it's actually illegal for people to say you have to make a donation or give a gift to the charity in return for making a will, because that would be coercion.
Of course. And it can be quite confusing because there are so many adverts out there and so many people asking for it. But, who can take advantage of this sort of offer? Do they have to be over a certain age or...?
So some of the larger charities with Free Wills Month, you do need to be over 55 to take advantage of them effectively paying for a solicitor-drawn will. We actually use a very trusted company called Octopus Legacy, who were formerly known as Guardian Angel. They're the sister company, actually, of Octopus Energy, which is probably they're more well known for.
I didn't know that. That makes sense now. Why I kept calling them that by mistake.
Yeah, they were actually bought by Octopus Energy owners and changed their name, I think, possibly about 12 months ago. So they're probably not as well known in the market, but they are a really trusted provider and have been doing this under the Guardian Angel branding for quite a long time. You can create your will either online. A lot of people don't have time these days to go to a solicitor between 9 and 5 and find the time to actually go into town and do that. So you can create it completely online, or you can have a personal phone call back from one of the team, or if you would prefer to do it in person, they can make arrangements for that as well.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things, the barriers that people find about writing a will is, maybe not knowing exactly what they want and wanting to be able to talk to somebody. So through Octopus Legacy, they can actually get legal advice and expert support. Is that right?
Yeah, and they will just take you through it stage by stage. So firstly, thinking about your loved ones and your situation, making you perhaps think about who is it that you want to receive, whether it's the whole of your estate or parts of your estate. They'll just take you through that step by step and give you guidance every step of the way.
No, that's brilliant. So let's talk about the impact now of people leaving a gift in their will. So sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small. What sort of impact does it have on, across our hospitals or on the charity?
So we receive really generous donations. I think it is always fair to say, think about your loved ones, think about your family first. But if you are in a position to then be able to also think about charities can just do so much good with it. So for us, we might receive almost a thank you back to the NHS staff. Often it's people will include the NHS and our charity within their own will because they may have had care and compassion from a particular team, and sometimes people will actually write that into their will, which it's really lovely. And we can go back to the staff to say, actually, we were left a legacy as a charity, but in grateful thanks effectively for the care they received at that time, or a family member received. And sometimes we don't know what that is, but people also leave depending on their own wealth and their own circumstances. So we have been left everything from a carriage clock to the biggest donation that we received probably about 5 years ago now, which was well documented in the press, which was £1.8 million.
Goodness me.
That went on for we actually managed to redevelop 4 wards on the Ipswich site. We developed them to be all dementia friendly. It was just a beautiful thing to be able to do. We also, from that, we actually put £500,000 of that into an innovations fund, so that people who had great ideas locally could actually bring those to fruition. But we've done many other smaller things, including refurbishing the studio with Legacies, where someone left us a specific gift, actually, for hospital radio.
That's amazing. There is so much that can be done with that. We'll talk about that a bit more detail in just a moment. Welcome back to Hospital Radio Ipswich. I'm still joined by Mandy Jordan here. And off air, we have been discussing wills and how important it is. And I will admit, I haven't set mine up, so I am certainly convinced today. I think it's one of those things that, you put off and you put off and you think it's such a hard job to do. But, I mean, is it really that hard, Mandy?
It really isn't. As I say, you can go on to the Octopus Legacy site or visit your solicitor. It's probably no more than an hour of your time. Yes, you do need to think about, everything before then, perhaps, but it will prompt you through that. But as we were just talking about, it's also about, you can set out things like guardianship for if you've got children. What would happen to your children? Who do you want to look after them in the event that something happens to you?
That I must admit, that's always been one of my concerns, because I think I was probably watching this morning at some point, and there was a grandmother on there that was saying that they couldn't have access to their grandchildren because when their daughter passed away, the husband would not allow that access. Is that something that you can cover?
You'd usually put guardianship in there. I guess you can write your wishes in terms of allowing access, but that would probably come down to a family court and be outside of your will if that person disputed having that access. You'd like to think that wouldn't be the case, but obviously, unfortunately, families have disputes over these things. So the more you can set out your wishes. The other thing we were talking about off air is that your will can also include whether you want to be buried or cremated, and what you want done with maybe your ashes or where that's to take place.
I thought that was just one of those sorts of conversations that you had maybe when you're having a Sunday roast.
It is with some families, but as I was just saying, it was a conversation that we hadn't had with a loved one. And actually, when it came to that point, there was differing opinion across family members around what that person wanted. And I'm still not 100% sure that we actually carried out their wishes, but we did have to make a decision, and it would have been so much easier if it had just been written down so that everybody was aware of what they wanted.
That's the thing, isn't it? Having that conversation is one thing, and which we know can be quite difficult for some people, but actually getting it down in writing and someone knowing where it is. I mean, where do you store these sorts of things?
So probably as a result of my own experience and having to have carried out going through probate where somebody died intestate, what I have done with my children is just had then that very honest conversation about what our wishes are. I have 3 adult children and 2 grandchildren. So we've just had a very honest conversation with our 3 to say, this is what we want, effectively, passing to between spouses, if you like, if something happens to one of us. And then it's just written down that, it will be divided equally between them. And if they don't survive, then to pass down to their children. And then there are a couple of specific objects that we want to leave to individuals within there as well. So we've made allowances for that. But then it's also all very well having will, but if it's squirreled away somewhere and no one knows you have it, it's not going to be much use to them. So the other thing I have done is actually tell them all that it's in a bright blue envelope in my safe. I'm telling the world now, in case anything happens to me, hopefully not. But it's, where exactly it is, that my life insurance policy is with it. Other important documents that you do unfortunately need to register a death. So things like your birth certificates, marriage certificates, etc. Yeah. They need to know that. They need to know where your accounts are. So it's just about a trusted person knowing where that is. A lot of solicitors will also store your will. Sometimes they will charge a fee. If you've had it written at a solicitor's, they generally don't, because they might hope that they might be the executors or support the family in when the time comes. But some storage areas do charge for that as well.
Of course, and that's really good to know. Before we were talking about the difference that leaving a gift in your will can make to the hospital. But I think some people's perception is, if I'm going to leave a gift to a charity, it needs to be a huge or significant amount. Is that the case?
Not at all. You can leave as much or as little as you can afford and that you think is fair to your families as well. I was trying to make that point. This isn't about sort of the charity saying, please leave us X amount of money, because if you are leaving money to charity, it should be something that is important to you and your family, and as I say, often linked to care. But it can be the small gifts. We often say, £20 can mean that a cancer patient perhaps has a wellbeing session. We support people with all manner of things. So perhaps £25 could mean the difference between somebody sitting with somebody at end of life on one of our wards, supporting our volunteer coordinators and our butterfly volunteers, etc. So even the smallest gifts will make some impact. The other thing is you can leave actual specific items, and if there's something that was important to you, to charity as well. So, and sometimes we can use those objects, and other times, unfortunately, they will need to be sold, and then we'll put that to whatever the best effect is across the ward or department that you've left it to.
No, that's brilliant. So I guess that, you made a point earlier that it's about making sure your loved ones are cared for and looked for first of all. So it's not, we're not taking anything away from family members, but it's about anything that's above and beyond that you feel that you would like to give back or to say thank you, as you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different ways of leaving. So you can leave specific amounts. You can leave, as I say, specific objects. But the other one that a lot of people don't know is something called your residuary estate. And basically that's after you have made provision for specific people or specific things. Whatever is left you can leave as percentages. So you could leave whatever is left perhaps split between two charities or 100% to one. But what many people are doing now is actually splitting out their estate and actually putting it into, I will leave 5% to whatever charity, or 5% to my grandchildren, or 5% to a friend or whatever. And the reason for doing that is actually where you specify an actual financial amount, over time that diminishes with inflation.
Of course.
But actually if you express your will as percentages, it stays in proportion to whatever your wealth is at the time of your death.
Absolutely. And
so that helps everybody, I think. As if perhaps you left £5,000 and you wrote your will 20 years ago, that's not worth the same 5,000 as it is now.
And I suppose you don't know how much you're going to have at that point. Like we said earlier, if it was next week, 5 years' time, or however long, you don't know what you're going to have. And if you specify an amount, you want to be sure that you're giving the people what you want to give them, the right amounts, don't you?
Yeah, so I think for me, the proportionality and expressing it as a percentage is the fairest way, because whatever you're left with, everybody gets that even distribution. I think the other important thing to say is leaving money to a charity. Actually, I'm not an inheritance tax advisor, but if you're getting towards the thresholds of inheritance tax, any gift or donation to charity is tax-free. So for many people who do have a particular amount of wealth, actually leaving a gift to charity can help their family avoid some tax. Probably not saying tax avoidance, but it's a legal way of avoiding some of the tax burden. And if you gift, I think it is over 10% of your total estate to charity, and you're in an inheritance tax threshold band, your estate tax would come down from 40% to 36%.
Wow. So I think one of the things you said there about sharing it between charities, so if you've seen one of those free will adverts and you're phoning a charity, so you don't have to just donate to that charity. You could donate, split it across multiple. Yeah,
most people actually do. So we're starting to see a growth. There's a grant of probate office, and then a company that sort of analyses wills, etc. And generally where people do leave money to charity, I think the average is they might leave it to 7 charities.
Why do you think that is?
I think when somebody's thought about charity, then it prompts that conversation either with themselves or with others, about which charities are important.
And there are so many great charities out there and doing lots of different work. It might be that you want to donate some to a health charity and some to an animal charity, mightn't it? You don't have to choose one specific. No, that's great. If you are sat there thinking that you would like to talk to someone about this further or look at writing your will, I will provide you with some further information after these songs. If you want a phone number or a website, then get a pen and I'll give that to you shortly. Bailey Ray there, put your records on. Lovely. So today we have been discussing wills with Mandy Jordan, Associate Director of Charities and Voluntary Services here at ESNEFT. So if you have been sat there thinking, right, I need to do something about it and get your will, I've just been told off by Mandy, I need to sort my will out. So I will
Sorry.
after this. And as it is so easy, as you've told me, I will make sure I get it sorted. But you might be thinking, right, how do I go about this? How do I get this sorted? So it's Octopus Legacy that Colchester and Ipswich Hospitals Charities does their free wills through, but you can find out more on their website. So head to colchester-ipswich-charity.org.uk/wills. That's colchester-ipswich-charity.org.uk/wills. And the code is written on there, but I will tell you, just to make sure at the checkout you put in Colchester Ipswich free, and that means you will get your will for free. And I cannot say enough, you don't have to leave a gift if you don't want to, right, Mandy?
No, absolutely not. This is something we want to do for the benefit of our patients, staff and supporters, so we're putting this out there for this free will month. But yeah, absolutely, it would just benefit so many people if you just had a will.
Yeah. And take away that stress from your family. If you would prefer to speak to somebody, then there is a contact telephone number of 020 4525 3605. That's 0204. I got lost. 0204 525 3605. You know when you read numbers in different ways, but all the information is on the charity's website if you want to look at that. And we mentioned as well about keeping your wills updated. So Mandy, if you set up a will with Octopus Legacy, you can get it updated with them, right?
Yeah, that's right. So if you wanted to update it anytime during the first 12 months, it's free of charge. And if you wanted to do it after that, it's just £10 fee. I would also say on our website, if you're considering making a will after all of the hype that's been in the media about it this week with the Martin Lewis crashing various websites last night, etc., and obviously my eloquent way of talking about it today, we also have a free Gifts in Wills guide. We have a digital copy online, but if you contact the charity office, if you prefer it in print, we can send you a copy out as well.
Brilliant. And I can confirm the website is working, but if you're a staff member and you are looking to go onto the Octopus Legacy website, a bit of a tip, do it from your mobile phone. Don't do it on your work computer. The good old technology, IT and firewalls, we know it well, don't we, Mandy? But yeah, head to our website and you can find out all that information on there.